On December 12, 2010, I lost my son Matthias in a household accident. He was 21 months old. Such a loss is difficult to fathom, but I would like to share with you some of my journey since that fateful evening. To help me, imagine yourself in a painter's studio. The room is open, airy, and bathed in light. The easel is prepared, the pigments are on the palette, and the brushes are at the ready. The canvas currently holds the first layer, black, representing death. The second layer, though not as grim as the first, will broaden the scope and draw you closer to the canvas, for within the paint about to be laid is a subject we can all relate to. And gathering tinges of gray from the palette, let us continue. Amidst the indescribable grief of that evening, my sorrow was compounded further when I experienced a loneliness so paralyzing the event plays through my mind till this day. These grays of loneliness wash over the canvas as a rolling fog, drawing you in, engulfing you with memories to which there seems to be no escape. They have been well described by Thomas Wolfe. The whole conviction of my life now rests upon the belief that loneliness, far from being a rare and curious phenomenon peculiar to myself and to a few other solitary men, is a central inevitable fact of human existence. Despite the current bleakness, do not be disheartened. As we delve into the complexity of this painting, you will discover that there is a light for our path and there is a hope for our heart, granting us the strength needed to dip the brush again and again, guiding us through the obstacles found on the canvas of our lives. Some may detect an accent. I am Australian, but I have chosen to live in the United States of America. Across the breadth of this planet, there are many people who have been displaced from their homeland, and it has not been with the same freedom I was fortunate enough to exercise. They have fled their homes because of acts of war. They seek asylum from political persecution or being jailed for their religious beliefs. These are global concerns. However, do not deny anyone their personal struggles. Even just leaving home for the first time or the seemingly benign move across town can cause a person to feel isolated. Regardless of the reason, displacement causes a separation from what we know as familiar. Family, friends, food, routines, and customs. In a society so enamored with rock star fashion, magazine-covered looks, and billboard pin-ups, it is understandable that such a distorted view of the human physique will have negative effects. Under such a barrage of manipulated advertising, a person will soon forget what it means to be themselves, blindly pursuing unattainable perfection. Personally, I am far from perfection. Since Matthias's death, I have put on some weight. Not outwardly noticeable, but uncomfortable enough to cause undue stress to the knees and lower back. It is often easier to grab a bite to eat in an effort to avoid the pain than to face its reality. People dealing with suffering in their own lives may choose the opposite end of the spectrum. To dull their emotions instead of overeating, they may choose to starve themselves. Obesity or bulimia and everything in between, eating disorders can cause a distressing feeling of being alone. Further consideration needs to be given to those who have no such control over their appearance. Physical ailments caused by genetic issues, medical complications, or the result being injuries from an accident are widespread. The truth is simple. Whether a person is a picture of perfect health or riddled with illness, everyone on some level or another, at one time or another, have been ostracized based solely on their looks. People are all too often sent into seasons of separation because of relationships. The building of walls to protect oneself can be attributed to external factors such as divorce, remarriage, adoption, abuse, and parenting by proxy. Internally, some people are naturally shy or suffer anxiety. Numerous phobias and mental disorders only expand the issues involved. These all hinder a person's ability to build strong interpersonal bonds throughout their lives. Any of the above can turn healthy human interactions into unhealthy lifestyles. One may become a workaholic, others retreat retreat to drug or alcohol abuse. Many seek comfort in all sorts of sexual perversions, and others drop out of society, choosing the lifestyles of the streets. Most people, however, continue a quiet, isolated struggle, not giving voice to their inner turmoil, like Thomas Wolfe has so aptly done. It can be extremely painful taking the inner person and revealing it to the world. In that regard, despite its grueling nature, this painting is showing good progress. The first layer, which is black, death, and the second layer, gray's loneliness, have moved us towards layers consisting of displacement, appearance, and relationships. Assign colors to them that you choose, as we set aside these thick, heavy brushes and take hold of brushes with finer bristles. These will allow us the ease of movement necessary to blend the colors together in such a manner that best illustrates the heart of this painting. Loneliness, as best explained, is a byproduct of the fall, a most telling outworking of our separation from our Creator. Since that catastrophic day in the Garden of Eden when our parents Adam and Eve rebelled, passing their sin-cursed Adamic DNA to their children's children, throughout the generations there has been a wedge between mankind and the ground, man and his fellow man, and between God and man. In regards to displacement, sin has displaced us from what was meant to be our true home. Originally created and placed in the Garden of Eden by God's very hand, no one lives there now. Instead, we inhabit a cursed and groaning planet. We toil, spilling sweat, tears, and blood to put food on our plates. We have inherited a world of weeds and thorns. In regards to appearance, we were designed to have incorruptible bodies, yet our bodies are compromised, and no matter how good the fitness program or the technological advances in our medicine, sickness, disease, and death still reign. Our bodies have been disfigured from the day we partook of the vices we should never have touched. In regards to relationships, we were brought into existence to live in purity. However, depravity now governs our thoughts. We flock to the recesses of our minds in order to commit wickedness upon ourselves and our fellow man. God decreed long ago that the thoughts of men were evil continuously. He judged the world, yet we have not heeded his warning. In days to come, mankind's ungodliness will once again parallel those found in the days of Noah. Our relationships in terms of marriage, the family structure, and the role of children will continue to be distorted from the good God intended for us. From the brush to the canvas, the paint has flowed smoothly, establishing the proper perspective required to tackle the remainder of this painting. Keep on in all your strength, knowing the layers that are to come. Matthias was in surgery. We were in the waiting room. The doctors walked down the hall 45 minutes ahead of schedule. Before the words left their mouths, we knew Matthias was gone. Asked if we would like to see him, we found ourselves standing in front of that door, knowing what was inside. Entering, totally unaware the front lines had been drawn, and the height of the battle was drawing near when Satan wanted to crush me so, we proceeded over to where our lifeless son lay. My wife went to the opposite side of the bed, and I took my position closest to the door. After a short period of grieving together, my wife's father, mother, brother, and his wife arrived. From the moment the doors opened, the natural distance in relationships was evident. I watched as if in slow motion their every step. They walked across the room, passing by without acknowledgement, reaching their destination, my wife. They had to make that walk. I fully understand, but right then all the reasoning in the world could not relieve the pangs of loneliness. I knew they were not coming for me. No one was coming for me. Left standing there, grief-stricken and alone, it was ultimate loneliness, agonizingly so. The inner turmoil so intensified and utter despair overtook me. I stood on an island, defeated, devastated. Though it seemed I couldn't cry anymore, a new stream burst forth from the depths of my already shattered soul. How can I possibly describe those emotions emotions which for me are forever frozen in time. Firstly, I don't mention this because of any grudge or hostility. It's just stating the facts. It's what happened. If we had lived in Australia, I am sure the opposite would have occurred. Secondly, it dawned on me, for that brief period of time, there was no one I could turn to, no one in which to share my grief. No supportive shoulder could be found. No parents. They were 10,000 miles away. No siblings. They were 10,000 miles away. No closest friends. They too were 10,000 miles away. If you can glimpse the intensity of that loneliness and reflect upon your own life, this painting reveals that it is all too common. Though circumstances vary, we are not that different in our experiences. In the words of the song Anchor by Beautiful Eulogy, at some point, every human looks right in the eyes of agony and through the tragedy asks himself, how can this happen to me? You might be the type with enough insight to hold on for your dear life, but slip because your grip is not as tight as you might like. You ain't immune to it. Nah. It's in the song. Many trapped under such emotional turmoil, tragedy, sorrow, pain, and suffering have asked, why even continue with the effort to paint? Simply cast this canvas into the garbage and be finished. Numerous souls have traveled such a path when life has reached a level that appeared utterly unbearable. No, 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 no. Do not be so foolish. Do not give up. Do not leave the studio. Paint because the story is not yet fully told. Add color and definition from that evening. Bring forth the contrast in order to make certain that of this light and of this hope we have spoken about, one can be absolutely sure. Keep your eye on the painting. These coming strokes are so precise they will make sense of an otherwise tragic scene. Watch carefully the master painter. I assure you it is a masterpiece. You will be astounded. Regrettably, now and again we leave home with a slammed door and an unforgiving word for the ones we love. Oftentimes we are too hurried to say our goodbyes properly. Before I left for work that evening, I received 3 flying leap hugs from Matthias. Who would have known our last physical interaction while he was conscious would be so precious? My occupation requires me to be away overnight. That evening I filled a position I had never worked before. When I accepted the assignment, the bonus was that at the end of my shift I could return home. At work, law dictates no cell phones be in our possession or even turned on while performing safety-related tasks. After 7 hours on duty, we began our meal period. Within 5 minutes of turning on my phone, I received the call regarding the accident. We often wonder, would Tiggy have had a better chance of survival if Life Flight had not been grounded that evening due to high winds? However, we are grateful that the first responders were able to reach our home. If the accident happened the year before, 2 feet of snow would have prevented any such assistance reaching us. At the county hospital, we were able to comfort the other children as best we could. Friends were making sleeping arrangements for them. The first plan was to split them among 2 homes. Fortunately, they were able to stay under one roof. Matthias was transported to the city hospital. As my wife and I drove along and pulled over to allow Tiggy's ambulance to pass, we were left wondering if Tiggy would be alive by the time we got there. We kept track of the vehicle several miles before it was swallowed up by the hills. We arrived and Matthias was alive. During the short walk between the emergency and operating rooms, we were allowed the opportunity to see him. I told him I loved him and to pull through so we could play room rooms together. The wound on his head was unavoidable. Filled with tenderness in what would be the last time we would see Matthias alive, we both kissed him ever so gently on the forehead, hoping he wouldn't feel any more pain. Afterwards, we broke the news to his siblings. As a parent knows their child's personality, each responded as expected. Mouse was silent, Bear was angry, Bug was goofy, Elephant, what pain for so young a child. Button at 1.5 months just needed his mummy. Mummy just wanted her son. And I was a useless heap upon the floor. Dawn broke. It was a Sunday morning. Our lives would never be the same again. Were you paying attention to the incredible work occurring in the painter's studio? Maybe one more brushstroke would clarify everything. It is a master stroke. It binds the painting together, carries the answers, and embeds the meaning. The ambulance was long gone from our sight. Few cars were on the road to be expected so early in the morning. It was an extremely windy, bitterly cold, and cloudless night. Up ahead on the horizon, from the hand of the master painter, a solitary shooting star. The most beautiful shooting star that ever there was. Immediately this thought came to me. I am God, and I am still in my heaven. Although I still held out hope, I knew deep down Matthias would not survive. As a shooting star shines but for a few seconds, Tiggy's life would be gone all too quick. At the same time, God in his tender mercy, as only he can, imprinted upon my heart the knowledge that there is one who knows the stars by name, and he is in control even when your whole world seems to be spinning out of it. And that is the beauty of this painting. The base colors are still visible, but it is increasing in attractiveness. Similar to when you view a work of art at the museum, you contemplate it, step away, come back, and ponder it anew. Each viewing reveals new insight. That evening, as to be expected, plays over and over in my head. But I look back on that night with new eyes, new wisdom, and a new appreciation. Firstly, Matthias' middle name was Riker. Matthias Riker means gift of God's strength. Tiggy was so damaged from the accident, it's a miracle he made it out of the basement. Yet he hung on for over 5 hours, long enough for these events to have played out to God's glory. From sweet farewells before work to loving goodbyes before death, God is our strength. Secondly, when I felt so abandoned and alone, the Lord was ever present, reminding me of that beloved poem, Footprints in the Sand. Thirdly, while we were struggling with Matthias' death, he was entering into life everlasting. Fourthly, never ceasing in his studio, God is the master painter. He has painted the grandest work of art in human history, that being the portrait of his Son, Jesus the Christ. The Scriptures declare, we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. Referring to our high priest, Albert Barnes has commented, our high priest Jesus is not cold and unfeeling. That is, we have one who is abundantly qualified to sympathize with us in our afflictions, and to whom therefore we may look for aid and support in trials. Meaning, in our lives where many of our experiences are bitter, difficult, and trying, we can turn to the God who knows. When we turn to Jesus, we can be comforted, because by his wounds we are healed. Think of Jesus. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering. Like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Think of Jesus. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Think of Jesus. Many of his disciples withdrew and were not walking with him anymore. Jesus even asked the inner 12, you do not want to go away also, do you? Think of Jesus. From within his closest circle, one would rise to betray him with a kiss. Think of Jesus. One day, palm branches and multitudes of praise. Another day, cries to crucify him, crucify him. Think of Jesus. As he agonized in spirit, causing droplets of blood to soak his brow, the disciples slept. Shortly thereafter, they all forsook him and fled. Think of Jesus. There were few followers at the foot of the cross, and those who passed by openly mocked and ridiculed him. Think of Jesus, lifted up from the earth, displaced from his home, marred in his appearance, rejected by men. Christ took upon himself alone the punishment we would do. As the paint dries on the canvas, his signature and its authenticity upon this painting is without doubt. We would do well to be mindful. Since his days are determined, the number of his months is with you, and his limits you have set so that he cannot pass. Friend, I have seen it with my own eyes. Death is no respecter of persons. 21 months was not long enough for Matthias to have lived. Then again, some people don't even survive the womb. Place any number on our years, 70, 120, or 969. It too is not long. The thought of our mortality makes us uncomfortable. Some are inclined to tinker with the painting by dousing it with paint thinner, or throwing gloves of useless paint onto the canvas to make it more personally pleasing. One must make no adjustments because despite the best efforts of man, the base color remains for each and every one of us. Any attempt to distort the canvas of your life may bring temporary pleasure, but the canvas will be smeared. The painting is not marred by the artistry of God, but by the scribbles found within the hearts of men. In constant rebellion, man is a stiff-necked and stubborn being, unwavering in his transgression of the laws of a holy God. The creation is turned on its creator. Man scribbles, we are sovereigns, yet God is the sovereign one, and he is the painter. Man scribbles, we are the holy ones, yet God is the holy one, and he is the painter. Man scribbles, we are the judges, yet God is the judge, and he is the painter. Man scribbles, we are free to do whatever, yet God establishes the boundaries, and he is the painter. Man scribbles, we are gods, yet God is God, and he is the painter. In the face of such rebellious behavior, God had no choice but to place cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. Though cherubim stand guard, it is not them we need to contend with in regards to the state of our eternal souls. It is God himself. Therefore, our sinfulness which causes death can only be overcome if God himself provides for us a perfect solution. In regards to this malady, he has. In Christ Jesus we have provision. We receive mercy and we find grace. Still many continue with their senseless scribbles. They will have the audacity to ignore the knocking at the door. They will knowingly trample underfoot the only Son of God, and therefore will be lost, as their foot shall slide in due time. Let it be known, this painting is for your benefit, that through my journey you may know for a certainty that the master painter exists. My testimony is this. Sitting at the easel of the master painter and acknowledging that God is in control of the brushstrokes of my life has allowed his wisdom to shine through the darkness. Though the adversary attacked most viciously, my humanity till this day continuously stretched to its limits. God has shown himself more than sufficient. He alone has remedied my displacement. He has cured what ails my body. He has corrected the relationships. He is the life of my path and the hope of my heart. The frame affixed, the encasing secure, the question remains where to display this painting. Will it become the centerpiece of your home? God extends his invitation unto you, unto all of humanity. Will you receive him, or will it be shoved into storage never to be seen again? Choose carefully, for in rejecting the gift of salvation which God offers freely to each individual, and was bought at so great a price, you will experience punishment never ceasing. Since God sustains all things, in his power he upholds both the reward of heaven and the punishment of hell. In rejecting Jesus Christ, you'll be eternally displaced from the richness of heaven, of which you'll be fully aware. Hell will be your inheritance. In rejecting Jesus Christ, your physicality will be acute and eternally painful. In your anguish, you may witness those you ridiculed being comforted. In rejecting Jesus Christ, white as snow you will never be, because you reasoned in your mind that a relationship with Jesus was of no benefit to you. You will never have the opportunity to partake in fellowship with him again. As you desired here on earth, so it be hereafter for eternity. For those who wish to discard the works of the master painter, one final warning. There is a loneliness that extends into eternity and a fate far worse than death, and it is this. Anyone whose name was not found recorded in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. These are solemn matters, no doubt, but with the truth claims of any religion, they must be addressed with utmost seriousness. True biblical Christianity does not ask you to invite Jesus Christ into your heart to make one's life easy street. Real Christianity requires an individual to bow their knee to the King who saves, pleading for mercy, in turn receiving unmerited grace. My hope and my prayer is this. In sharing with you my journey of grief, loneliness, and loss, is that you too can find the only answer that satisfies the deepest longings of the human soul, and come to the knowledge that there is a cure for our itching ears. There is one who can tear down our hearts of stone. There is an ever-present help in overcoming the barriers erected when men suppress the truth in unrighteousness. That answer being the person and work of Jesus Christ. It was a real birth in a real stable, in a real dusty Judean town, and a real mother nursed her precious baby, and a bunch of wide-eyed shepherds gathered round. Real angels sang glory. Real hope was born that day. It was a real life. He had real friends. He walked shoulder to shoulder with the lost. He wept real tears for the fallen ones, and he anguished over sin's dreadful cost. On a real cross cried, "Forgive them," as his real life drained away. I have real fears. I do real sin, and I hurt the ones I cherish and adore. The real mercy of the true God sees the filthy, fallen, purchased, and restored. And I cry, "My God, oh, fill me with a heart completely yours." I bet all I have on Jesus. I will throw myself on him, the one who died a real death for real sin. I bet all I have on Jesus. Throughout eternity, I will marvel at the real hope my Savior won for me. May salvation come to your house this day. We have a wonderful Savior, and he's often called the Rock. And you build your house upon the rock because when the storms of life come, and they will come, you will not be swept away. You may not have experienced the loss of a child, but you have experienced something so personally deep that you wonder what's it's all about. This rock here is a wonderful reminder to my family and I. The question is, what is an Australian doing with a rock from Nepal in Nebraska? As we watch this short video, it will begin to answer the question. If you want to pass it around.
Think back at the time when you were a child, a time when you would dream about what you envisioned being when you grew up. At times, those dreams would be grand, and other times they would be simple. But in both cases, they would stir our hearts into thinking about the what-ifs. In America, most of us can not only dream those dreams, but we were given the encouragement and the education and the opportunity to see many of those dreams realized. A half a world away, that most often is not the case. The harsh reality of the present overwhelms any thought of the what-ifs. Life isn't about dreams, it's about survival. So, what if, by God's grace, we could create an environment where little boys and girls from Nepal, the most impoverished and disadvantaged, would be able to dream big dreams, and not only dream those big dreams, but realize that those dreams actually could come true? What if God would lead us to a beautiful, serene piece of land located far from the chaos and poverty that is Nepal? What if that land would one day become a place of laughter and joy, a place where children learn, play, wonder, and worship? What if we were able to create a Christian community that would consist of at least 6 children's homes? These children would then be provided with the best educational opportunities available to any child in Nepal. We absolutely believe that place to be the Dream Center. We invite you to hear the hearts of some of the children who will one day soon call the Dream Center their home. We invite you to come and to join us as we plan and pray and create a place where the dreams of these children can indeed come true.
Tennessee. And our dream is our children a holy home, and they maybe in future they may be godly men and women, and they may serve the Lord, and they may save the many people.
My name is Suresh. My dream is pastor.
My name is Sanju. My dream is teacher.
My name is Asta Magar. My dream is nurse. My name is Deepa Gurung. My dream is a doctor.
My name is Vikram. My dream is doctor.
My name is Savita. My dream is teacher. My name is Awat. My dream is pilot.
Hi, it's me, Arvind, and my dream is social work.
My name is Min. My dream is to be a pastor.
Hello, my name is Krishna, and this is my lovely wife Bimala. Thank you for making our dreams come true. Thank you very much. Let me see.
Construction has begun just about 3 weeks ago on the first 2 of 6 children's homes which we plan to build on the land. Each home is very carefully designed. It has 5 bedrooms. 4 bedrooms will be for the children, so each bedroom will have about 3 to 4 children each. And here's the preparations for the beginning of the foundation. You can see this pavilion is being constructed here on the edge of the land. We've also begun construction on a wall all the way along the outside of the land. There's just a sense of excitement as construction has began to see this vision, which is going to better the lives of so many children, finally starting to come true at last, and as the parents and the kids are starting to talk about it. So we're very excited for where God's going to lead this project and for what He's already done, and to see all that He has in store for it.
Go!
That video shows the beginnings of the Dream Center constructions in 2011. Now in 2012, the first 2 homes at the Dream Center site in Pokhara, Nepal are nearing completion. The obvious question is, where does our family and Tiggy's house fit into this picture? Being a part of the body of Christ, we all serve different functions. I believe that our role can be summarized by the following verse. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, because that is the end of every man, and the living takes it to heart. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 2. Adam Clark has some great insight here. It is better to go to a mourning man to comfort him. For at such times and places the conversation was serious and interesting and turned upon the subjects of mortality and a future state and preparation for it, from whence useful and instructive lessons are learned. And so it was much better to be there. As many of you know, mourning came to our home through the tragic loss of our son Matthias. Through somber conversations, thoughtful contemplation of the reality we now faced and the end state of man, Grandma and my wife ignited the flame that is now Tiggy's house. You can catch a glimpse of our mood from what my wife wrote over a year ago. Since my son, Matthias Tiggy, died, my heart has turned toward the plight of children who have never known the kind of love he did even in his short life, who live in poverty so extreme that their own parents will sell them into slavery, who are raised by the streets and who will more than likely turn their own children over to those same streets. My heart has turned toward the children served by Tiny Hands International. Who are these children of Nepal? The children Tiny Hands International are trying to reach, and Tiggy's house will serve. By request, the names have been changed. Peter's mother, a prostitute and street beggar, was either unwilling or unable to care for her new little boy. She didn't even want to name him because she said, what's the point of giving him a name? Who is going to be there to call him by a name? The baby's mother agreed to allow Peter to be placed in Tiny Hands' holy home. Today he is 3 years old, is in an environment where he can be a carefree kid, growing and developing, playing, learning, and able to have hope of a future. He is surrounded by a loving family, constant support from Tiny Hands, and encouragement, love, support, and prayers from his sponsor family here in the United States. Katie and Justin's mother abandoned the family about a year ago, and the family has since received word that she has died. Their father broke his leg several months ago, and it has now turned to cancer. The doctors fear that he will lose his leg soon. He has not been able to work, and he is very poor. He can no longer care for his children or even feed them anymore. Since their arrival at the Bethany home, Katie has began attending school for the first time in her life and is now able to get a good education. She enjoys family devotions and worship time each morning and evening. Michaela's father had abandoned her family when she was very young, and her mother is now dead. Michaela was living with her sister and brother-in-law, where she was raped by one of the neighbors. The court ordered her to be sent to some institution as the government decided that she was not being taken care of and wasn't given enough attention and love by her sister and brother-in-law. Eventually, Michaela found her way to the Tiny Hands Holy Home. For the first time in her life, Michaela is loved and cherished and given opportunities that have restored her hope and dreams of a future. Michaela has never been to school before and is so excited to be able to go to school with her new brothers and sisters. It is amazing how quickly she has adjusted to a new home and is healing from her tragic past. Michaela has only been in the Holy Home for about 4 weeks and is the newest Tiny Hands child. Dana and I believe that every child deserves to be loved, as Tiggy was and is. It is the catchphrase for our website. But how do we demonstrate this love, not just say it? Through service and sacrifice. The scriptures say, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless as this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. The vision that is the Tiny Hands International Dream Center, we believe, fills this mandate in a unique way. It will be a community where volunteers and friends of Tiny Hands could come and participate in an active, thriving community of believers who live and learn together as followers of Christ. On site in Pokhara, Nepal, there will be, firstly, at least 6 children's homes where each will be separate and discrete family units who will live as friends and neighbors. Home sizes are kept small, up to 16 children per home, in order to create a family-like atmosphere. This allows the house parents to give personal attention to each child, so crucial for healthy development. Great care is taken in selecting house parents who will be nurturing and comforting and who will view each child as their own. Finally, while nutrition, shelter, and basic education are important things, Tiny Hands believes that children have fertile minds in need of cultivation to develop wonder, creativity, and ability. They view the spiritual, emotional, and mental development of each child as crucial. Secondly, the Dream School, where the aim is to provide a quality of education that is otherwise unavailable in Nepal, except to the ultra-rich. Because the government favors a rote learning system that does nothing to foster independent thinking and creative problem solving. All private schools in Nepal are English medium, so first language English speakers are highly coveted as teachers. For that reason, the school has enormous potential to be effective as an income generation project, attracting high-paying students that will help the Dream Center become financially self-sustaining. The school will provide a level of education previously impossible for Tiny Hands to provide their children. Thirdly, the Center for Medical Outreach will operate similarly to the Tiny Hands border monitoring stations. Working through local churches, the hope is to deliver healthcare services to underserved populations by developing training programs for village health workers. These health outposts will be overseen by local subcommittees formed through the local churches. Tiny Hands hopes to find interested Western and Nepali volunteer nurses, pharmacists, and physicians who are willing to help develop the training curriculum and participate directly in the training of health workers. Fourthly, the School of Injustice will be an academically rigorous U.S. accredited school located adjacent to the Dream Center, where U.S. college students spend an overseas semester studying the nature, scope, and scale of world injustice. And the final major project will be the Vision Center. A short walk from the Dream Center, it will be a building where volunteers, teachers, and visitors will be able to live and commune together. A commons area will serve as a place for shared meals, discussions, and games. Many of us will never walk the grounds of the Dream Center or see firsthand the work being accomplished there. Even for those who have traveled to Nepal, they can only glimpse at what God is doing. Jeffrey Penner, now in Tiny Hands staff, wrote me, "I walked away from my first visit at Paradise Home with only one way to describe the Tiny Hands International Children's Homes. They are a visual picture of God's grace and love. The children in these homes are no different than you and I. We are all broken, desperate, and hopeless because of our sins. But God, being rich in mercy and full of love, by His grace has adopted me into His family and has given me all good things in Christ Jesus. I don't deserve it, but I'm so thankful for what Jesus has done for me and what God has given me through His grace and love. The children in our homes haven't deserved it, but they are so thankful for what they have been given. Many of us will never see the work being done. Until we enter into heaven will we comprehend. Naturally, our family is heavily invested in Tiggy's House and our support for Tiny Hands International. But Tiggy's House is so much more than mere fundraising. It's about relationships, service, and healing. Our family struggles mightily even to this day. But when you read comments left on my wife's blog, so many people have been touched for the good. All my children witnessed the accident, yet they have put on their shoes, going door to door selling pizza cards, among other worthy activities in memory of their lost sibling, for the children they do not know. Grandma and Dana started selling jewelry at craft shows, sometimes without outward success. Yet when our story is told to people browsing the booth, you don't know whose life will be changed. Grandpa cooked up great tasting chili, a lot of chili, for a chili feed of which we are still eating leftovers. We are. Next Saturday, we are holding a garage sale here where I can do some more grunt work. People across the country have opened up their homes, allowing us to release balloons in memory of Matthias on their front lawn on the day that would have been his 3rd birthday. We have met other grieving families and learned much. The shockwaves of Tiggy's death have ripped through our family, but some ripples of good news have washed up on our shore. One thing I've learned over this period of time is that grief is One thing I've learned over this period of time is that grief is best dealt with when you turn it outward to service, then inward into wormwood. Surely through Tiggy's house we minister and are ministered to. What we hope for is that the Dream Center has given you the inspiration to seek God's greater glory, because He can increase the work you are currently doing to heights that exceed your expectations. We hope that through our story you can find the strength in Christ to walk on through hardships and despair. So in whatever endeavor you pursue, give of your words in prayer. Give of your heart in service. Give of what you cannot take with you in joy. It begins with Jesus Christ and it will end with Jesus Christ. God bless you. Thank you.